So many people are cut off from their creativity because they think you have to be an artist to be creative. And actually, we're all creating our lives every moment.
Rather than trying to kind of batter ourselves out of these problems that we've got ourselves stuck in, what we need is to find tools of creativity so that we can think more laterally to be able to liberate ourselves and society, really.
As we're able to cultivate presence, we're able to look and be much more in our physical reality and cultivate a new relationship or renewed relationship with our hands and what's in front of us. Creativity has no hierarchy and it has no rules. And that is the space that I would wish and I pray that we all can dwell in together.
Hello and welcome. A few weeks ago, I was taking part in a creative residency organised by Gaia, who you'll hear from in this conversation. At this time, the violence in the Middle East broke out. The world feels very different now, and we haven't talked about it much yet on this podcast. It's been a big theme of our Navaratri practice, which just ended, where we have been in a deep sadhana with the energies of the goddess Durga and Kali in our prayer and in these transformative energies. And in these transformative energies, connecting to courage, to love, to discernment, and to the inner warrior. I know it's a lot to be witnessing this violence on our phones through social media and not know exactly where our place is in all of this and how we can show up in a meaningful way. We'll be exploring this more in member spaces and in future episodes. And if any of you have any suggestions of guests that you'd like to hear from at this time, or ways in which we can create spaces to come together and process and also take collective action, then please do get in touch. For now, I'm sharing through my Instagram stories what I can. I have received some violence there, as have many of my friends who are sharing in solidarity with Palestine. And we know that there is so much more violence that's happening in our everyday lives to Jews, to Muslims, to others outside of that, to Christians, to more people of color. It's interesting what's happening has added into that sense of division and violence. These are strange and troubled times that we live in. And it is happening through our phones and through the algorithms and the advertising that we're exposed to, and through the lens of our media, as well as, of course, to the human beings whose lives have been lost in these weeks. And so I encourage you to check in on your friends and activists that you know right now, and to be as kind as you can. Be as kind as you can in your communities with the people that you are speaking to online and with the people that you are interacting with in your daily life. Can you make eye contact with more people, smile at more people in the street, in the shops, and as you're going about your daily business? So much trauma is being activated right now. And one of the ways that I have tended to my trauma has been through my creativity, especially the creativity that lives outside of capitalism, the art, the poetry, the music that I've created or enjoyed that has supported me in moving through so much. The power of being in community, of singing together. Today, I was singing with some sisters in the White Springs of Avalon as we were singing our prayers. The nights that I've been around a fire, under the great sky, as people have shared songs and poems, and we have been together, connected in community. I believe so fully in the power of our creative activism in the world, of art as resistance, as this transformation of our souls. And this is encapsulated by this quote that came up this week from Ursula K. Le Guin. We live in capitalism. Its power seems inescapable, but then so did the divine right of kings. Any human power can be resisted and changed by human beings. Resistance and change often begin in art. Very often in our art, the art of words. She also says that the creative adult is the child who has survived. And so at this time that we are in such deep prayer for all of these children, mothers, fathers, grandparents, people just like us that are living their lives, that are suffering with so much violence right now, to those souls that have passed, to those that will pass in these coming days and weeks. We dedicate this, the power of our creativity, to them, that those of us that live more privileged lives, that are safe, that are warm, that have food and shelter, that are able to spend time connecting to how we may best serve a beautiful future, to what it is that we will create, that we can use our creativity as a tool to stir humanity in the way of transformation that honors every human life, that honors our human right to be connected to our spirituality and our creativity, and that honors our earth. A group of 26 of us gathered for a week on the wilds of Dartmoor, the national park in Devon, to live together, eat together, and work on our own creative projects. This creative residency here in England was a space for us to connect deeper to nature, to our own practices and wildness, to share what we were creating through scratch cabaret nights and workshops, a space that we could ask for input from others or take time in silence, a space where we could support each other and be supported in our creativity, in that connection with our intuition, with our souls. I gathered a few of the participants for this Circle podcast, where we passed the mic as the talking stick, and we each shared on the power of creativity in our culture, in society, as well as more of our own creative journeys. In the order that you will hear their voices, I am joined by Chris Bullzini, a high wire walker, a father, an off-grid spiritual warrior of the heart and yogi. A dozen years on the road initiated him into truly discovering his soul shine as a performer and connected him to his love of altered states of consciousness through present moment activities. Both an extrovert showman and an introvert meditator, Chris loves nature, humans as well as all beings other than human. Chris began his search for truth at the age of 11 when he bought a book on meditation. The world of the circus opened up for him, where he learned to juggle as a teenager. On the high wire, these two obsessions meet. Each wire walk is a meditation that takes Chris to a profound, non-ordinary state. This state impacts the audience on a deep level and often even brings people to tears as they're touched by the miracle of life in the simple yet profound image of a man walking through the sky. Kay Sarah Michael is a theatre maker, creative producer, facilitator, and activist. She has developed and directed award-winning new plays, sound journeys, and dance, curated and produced arts and performance festivals, transformed streets into carnivals, and derelict buildings into theatres. As a co-founder of Culture Declares Emergency, she has facilitated hundreds of people to respond to the climate and ecological emergency. She is the co-founding director of the global participatory campaign Letters to the Earth, for which she co-edited the book Letters to the Earth, Writing to a Planet in Crisis, introduced by Emma Thompson. She is now developing Letters to the Earth for the stage. Gaia Harvey Jackson is a facilitator, couples coach, artist, and poet. She is the co-founder of True Nature, a co-director of Symbiota, and has worked closely with the Psychedelic Society since 2017. Gaia's primary work is leading retreats and training programs, using movement, voice, authentic relating, and ritual to create spaces for people to express big emotions, communicate from an empowered and embodied place, and find the courage to be unapologetically themselves. Gaia has worked with many leading organizations in the field of personal development, including Medicine Festival, Togetherness, Morning Gloryville, Alter Ego Network, Ecstatic Dance UK, Noisily, Ecosystem Restoration Camps, and Pinky Promise. Dannii Evans is a curator, artist, and facilitator based in the UK, the Middle East, and Mexico. Training as a visual artist and curator, Dannii combined her love of live performance to found One Taste, the music and spoken word platform that developed exceptional talent, including Kate Tempest, Jamie Woon, 47 Soul, Nick Mulvey, and Inua Alams. As a space holder, she builds cross-cultural, interdisciplinary networks, festival programs, and collaborative projects between artists, changemakers, and professionals, creating invitations to participate in collective experiences for the purpose of social transformation. Dannii's passion lies at exploring cultural boundaries and bridges to shift perceptions, dissolve borders, and vision new futures together that reveal our true human connection. In this conversation called States of Awe, the power of creativity, we explore the question, how can we cultivate creativity to imagine a society that serves all of us? At the start, you will hear Gaia read her poem that she wrote during the residency called Hold On. And at the end, you will hear Dannii sing Mamouza's beautiful song, We Shall Be Known. I hope that this episode inspires you and opens your creative powers of transformation. Welcome to All That We Are, with me, your host, Amisha Gadiali. On this show, we explore the weave between activism, the sacred, creativity, and regeneration, the spaces where our inner and outer worlds dance. From healing trauma to nature connection, to new technologies to ancient wisdom, it's time for us to move beyond silos and into an integrated way of being. Every one of us has ideas and personal experiences to share that can lead us to a more beautiful future. Despite the challenges we face as a global community, or the pressures we meet in our daily lives, when we stop and dare to listen, to ask ourselves the big questions, and to share what we are already doing and envisioning, we create the futures of our wildest dreams. And we begin to embody all that we are becoming, and all that is possible.
When battles come, it's our instinct to run. But if the love is strong, hold on. I know the grass looks greener. I know it would be easier to throw the towel in. But giving up before you've lost is not the same as staying till you've won. So if the love is strong, hold on. These days we expect things to be fast and easy. Those things run out quickly and leave you hungry. That which truly fills you will test and stretch. Through hardship comes depth. Through heartbreak, 100 deaths that show you how love can be reborn. So if the love is strong, hold on. When trust is broken and old wounds awaken, do not forsake the bridge, but build it back up stone by stone. Resentment is a bitter pill better not swallowed. Let your sorrows be known and let them go with the tears that carry them. Save your punishments. They do no good in the long run. So if the love is strong, hold on. If passion is waning, see this not as a failing, but a gateway to separate what is overly merged. Remember, you are both a mystery that cannot be fully known, that cannot be owned. It is this tension of separation that turns the light back on. So if the love is strong, hold on. Love is measured not by our enjoyment of the light, but by our ability to dance with the dark and see them both as one. So if the love is strong, hold on.
I am delighted to be here in the flesh with you four magnificent beings. Welcome to All That We Are, Chris, Kay, Gaia, and Dannii, and to our conversation here as we explore the power of creativity and what it means to us and what it means to the future that we're co-creating here. I'm going to pass to you first, Chris, to share what's alive for you around this.
Thank you, Amisha. Well, I feel like so much of my life revolves around creativity. And then I wonder, what is the antithesis of creativity? And what is it that makes the world tick? This world that we live in, 2023, in our crazy age where we are at the same time so capable. We have all this technology and we have the capacity to travel and communicate. And at the same time, we have so much limitation in terms of how we understand ourselves and connect with ourselves and each other. And I definitely see how creativity is really a thing which has helped our evolution get this far. Like, maybe the antithesis of creativity is the mundane and just focusing on survival needs, which is fine to a degree. We do need to focus on those needs. We need to feed ourselves and clothe ourselves and protect ourselves from the elements or from invasion or violence from other tribes, etc. And then there's something about that mundane and that striving for simple existence, which somehow isn't enough. For me, there's a real strong link between creativity and the divine, and maybe one definition of God or something more profound than our animal instincts is the creative spark within us all. And whether that's creativity for art or culture, in whatever way it expresses itself, there's something about being inspired by something more than just meeting those basic needs. And I wonder if there's a way, like as a father, I think of my daughter, and she's 6 years old, and I think of the schooling system and how there is some creativity encouraged in school. There is a lot of creativity available. And I think we're transitioning. I think that schooling used to be very much like one person stands at the front of a classroom with a blackboard and gets people to repeat something so it's drilled into their brain. And now there's a lot more invitation for recognition that each of us have a different brain, a different nervous system, a different experience of the world around us. And based on that, there's an inquiry into, like, yeah, what picture do you want to paint when you're 6 years old? What songs do you want to sing? And finding that space between individuality, individual creativity, and collective creativity, where we can invite people to join together and create something together, which ultimately is creating our societies. And by being able to choose the way that we create our societies and then the content of the societies, we end up with a world that we maybe like to be in, rather than living from these base instincts of fear or trying to squeeze ourselves into boxes that are not really our home. So yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, then that's really what I feel, is that inspiring more creativity, especially from when we're young in the schools, and then really letting that flood out throughout all areas of society. So it's not just, oh, there are artists and they are one fraction of society. It's more like the creativity and the methods to access the creative spark within us. Those tools are shared universally so that people in all walks of life are able to access more creativity. And then problem solving comes so much from that. So we look at environmental crisis, or we look at social problems. Actually, we need creative solutions all the time. And rather than trying to kind of batter ourselves out of these problems that we've got ourselves stuck in, what we need is to find tools of creativity so that we can think more laterally, to be able to liberate ourselves and society, really.
Thank you, Chris. It was really beautiful to hear you. And I agree with a lot of what you've shared in the vision for how creativity can be of service to us all and the world at large. Quite often when I was at drama school, which was that, wow, if everyone was as alive and as agile and imaginative and embodied and as we are being trained to be as actors, like, wow, the world would just be so gorgeous and we'd be so responsive to our needs and our visions of otherwise, and that, you know, we wouldn't be holding back. Yeah, I similarly believe that is accessible and innate in all of us, and don't believe in the segregation of the arts or creativity or the artist from the rest of society. And a lot of the work that I do is inviting participation and thinking outside the boxes of how people are engaging with creativity or art and are invited to be an artist or to awaken the artist within in whatever form or realm that might be in. And yeah, share a similar vision as you, Chris, that if that is awoken in us all and all the parts of us are given space to be seen and to breathe and to play, then we really can create very beautiful worlds together, and across difference as well, and across culture and across borders. And yeah, there's the international sharing of art and ideas is like so important, and that might be where digital technology is really beneficial. And yet I'm really conscious of the environmental damage that these systems can cause, and how the digital realm is really actually hijacking our creativity as well, I think. So much screen time is just draining me of my creativity, and I think many people can probably relate to that. You know, I'm not a gamer myself, but there are such incredible other worlds that people can experience through the screen and through video games, and AI might be taking us into more of such realms. And I'm a bit sad about that, actually, because I'm much more interested in the gaming and in the playing in reality, and what the benefits are of that for us as human bodies, what the somatic experience of that is, you know, how much we learn through engaging our bodies and our imaginations in real time and space, and how we can transform real space in that case. Yeah, I recently produced a street festival, and it's an example for me of how space can be like totally transformed and awoken with vibrancy and color and surprise. And that's a tool we really need to be practicing more and more about how we can change space and how we can transform something into something else.
Yeah, I want to kind of actually separate out the notion of creativity from art. And I think of art as being sort of the end product. And creativity is really about the process to get to that end product. And while not everyone perhaps wants to create art, I think creativity is actually a birthright of every human being, and creativity offers us a tool to interact with our inner world, and it's a way of processing emotion and actually really getting to know what is inside of us in a way that sometimes talking like we are now, this regular way of using language, is actually very limiting. And I think in our Western culture, we kind of lean quite heavily, or we sort of pedestal the more kind of intellectual way of speaking above other forms of sense making. At least for me personally, like through, you know, poetry and writing this and dance, there's so much that can be said, so much that can be expressed that actually isn't possible through a more like limited, regular way of speaking. And I think it's really, really sad that so many people are cut off from their creativity because they think you have to be an artist to be creative. And actually, we're all creating our lives every moment. Yeah, it is like this kind of separation, I think, that happens often in school years of people telling, you know, teachers telling you that you're not creative, you're not good at art. That is actually a severing from our inner life and a severing from our emotional world. And I think that is part of what's creating so much heartbreak and challenge and disconnection in our world, is this inability to connect with and express our inner lives and our emotional world in a way that is generative and healthy. And so it comes out in these sideways ways and we take it out on each other. And so, yeah, for me, creativity is, it's soul food. And there is this relationship between what is happening. It's creativity is the relationship between our outer world and our inner world. And great art is always that commentary, and it makes you feel something. It evokes something, and experiencing art and experiencing creativity made by others is, again, it's like this calling in, it's this awakening the soul and awakening the emotional world. And yeah, I think to kind of reiterate what you were saying, Chris, it is this relationship to something greater than, and it is a way of connecting with the mystical. It's almost interesting that we're having a conversation about something that feels mystical or beyond words. And I think the role that it can play, or how I would love to see it more in society, is in helping people to really, express and connect and process trauma collectively. And maybe that's my wish or my dream or my prayer, is for people to be engaging in creativity for that purpose.
Something was sparked from what you said, Chris, at the beginning for me, which is around this question of creativity being, is it a luxury or a necessity? Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which stated the 5 basic survival needs of a human being, which we know as, food and shelter and so forth. At the end of his life, he added a few more, and he edited his pyramid to include beauty and transcendence. From working as a producer and putting on a lot of events around the world, which was showcasing and platforming artists, the intent behind that was always to bring a sense of connection and to create a space for important messages that were coming through from particular human beings to be felt by others. And what I noticed over time from working with a lot of artists was that messages that teachers or politicians or other speakers or thinkers or intellectuals might be trying to, researchers are trying to get a message across to a population. And some of that, of course, is very effective. But when it was framed in a poem or had some element of a creative life behind what was being transmitted, a creative framing, it bypasses the critical judgmental mind and it goes straight in. It's received and listened to by the heart and by our bodies as a whole, including our minds. And from that place, I watched audiences feel a sense of connection and unity that you wouldn't find in a political forum or a place of debate. I've been very curious ever since about the intersection between all of these different worlds. The importance for me of creativity, I feel very privileged to have grown up in a space where it's just been obvious to me the whole time that creativity is an absolute necessity. And it's not just a necessity or something to cultivate, it's absolutely inherent in each and every one of us, like Gaia, you were saying. Like it is part of the makeup of being a human. What I've been observing over my life and with working in different countries and with different groups of people is that creativity can come out in all sorts of ways. So when we're in crisis, creativity comes out as invention. It comes out as genius strokes of illumination that are going to solve the problem in front of us in that very moment. But we can only sustain that level of inspiration for a very short amount of time when we're under pressure or crisis. But creativity is always present. Creativity is ever present also when we're in states of safety. And when we're able to really be held and drop into comfortable spaces and know that all of our needs have been met, creativity can blossom and flourish in absolutely incredible ways. And it is almost like, for me, the point of getting our survival needs met, like getting to that mid-level where we're coming out of crisis and into a more safe space as a society, for like economically safe, physically safe, is in order for us to be able to birth and grow and evolve our society beyond what it is right now, beyond these basic survival needs. And I really do feel it's every person's trajectory in whichever way they frame it. And it is beyond art, like you said, Gaia, that creativity is the joyful human expression of having all of our needs met. That is what then furthers on society with beautiful ideas, with things that are going to actually support and improve the next level of life on planet Earth. I'm just thinking about people in Palestine right now. I'm thinking about people in war zones where they're going to be using their creativity in formidable ways, but I just want to also send a prayer that we can all reach the levels of safety that we are experiencing by sitting in this circle right now, so that creativity can become much more of an sustainable and everyday moment by moment form of being and living. Because that is the way that it opens people's hearts. It's the way that we're all going to be able to share and connect and bring about a leveling and equality, because creativity has no hierarchy and it has no rules. And that is the space that I would wish and I pray that we all can dwell in together.
What's alive for me when you share that is the relationship between living a creative life and where we are in late stage capitalism, and how much capitalism has squeezed the areas where, as humans, we've always been naturally creative. I'm feeling like, what we eat and how we eat and what we grow in terms of our food and the clothes that we wear and how we mend them and how we add to them or we make them ourselves, or the way that we decorate a room. There's something that's happened that I've seen in my lifetime is this kind of move towards more of a monoculture. And just so many of us that, can't think of what to cook, and then there's ready meals or there's takeaways. It's like an outsourcing of that process. And when I think about my friends, not many people make their own clothes, where that was so normal for our parents' generations and their parents' generations. And even when you look at pictures of houses from the 70s, they're all different inside. People have colors and different kinds of things, rather than the kind of the same furniture from IKEA and the same kind of look that you kind of find in every house somehow, and that you find in all these new builds where they all look kind of identical on the inside. Like what Kay was saying about how the screen time and everything else that's competing sort of takes that away from us, of just these really simple ways that we can be more expressive and share more of our soul, and actually bring our hands into our lives and into the fabric of our everyday lives. And I definitely am not doing those things in any kind of idyllic way. But I do feel the loss of not having that spaciousness, and also not having that freedom. Like we buy things instead, and we express our creativity a bit through what we buy and what we have, and then of course some of us through what we create with our time and our art and our projects and our values, and how all of that contributes to the future. And so I really want to bring that invitation for how we can be more creative in the small ways in our lives, and how we can open up more space for play and for embodiment and for intuition, and for this space of more possibility, especially for those of us that aren't living in survival mode all the time. And how when we do that, it opens up so much. And as Kay was saying, like it creates such a different kind of society. And for me, one of the things that I love about the cultures of embodiment and workshops and facilitations is that it's brought that sense of aliveness in our being and in our imaginations, like out of drama school where you're learning how to be someone else, but into a space where we're learning how to be more of ourself, or all of our different selves, and we're freeing up more of who we are to bring into this world, and that's where the beauty lives, and where we create more and more of that beauty.
Yeah, I feel to share about my own personal journey with accessing these other dimensions and then shutting them down again. I was really touched by what you just shared, Amisha, about using our hands and almost the forgotten crafts that exist within our lineages. And right now we're here. We're all, lucky enough to be sitting in a room together because we all chose to come to the countryside and be at a creative retreat, to give time, to dedicate time to these passions or these endeavors. And for me, coming here was to a space of reawakening, and especially in the wild. And we find ourselves here on Dartmoor, and Dartmoor it always stirs something in me. And it's always something which wants me to return to my hands. I've over the years, it's that I had a career as a producer, and previous to that, where I was facilitating other artists, and previous to that, I was a fine artist and a pianist. But I let go of my entire kind of creative practice for 20 years. And I guess I might be saying this to anyone that might be listening to this podcast that might have picked something up as a child and really enjoyed doing something with their hands creatively, or played an instrument and only got to grade 1, or just had the impulse one day to start doing something they've never done, but just kind of it got thwarted in some way later on. Even somebody who has a degree apparently in fine art and all these different things, I've cultivated these practices and I've learned the piano and I can sing, I still shut it down for 20 years. And this next chapter of my life, I'm dedicating back towards remembering what my hands can do, and remembering what it is that I loved to do as a child. And there's curious things that I want to explore that feel really edgy that I've never done before. So it's not even just the remembering, it's also the learning and having the courage to learn and to be a beginner. And there's something about crossing over the threshold into middle life now where I just have a bit more of an attitude of like, oh, whatever, let's just try it and give it a go. And I feel that the more that I'm out of the habit. If I'm very honest, it's almost like I've used the computer so much. I've used my mind so much to create so many things and to solve problems, but my hands have so much more that they can figure out that my mind cannot, and so much more that they can create and fix and solve. And I was really inspired by what you just shared to actually start looking. It's like the word presence just kept coming. It's like as we're able to cultivate presence, we're able to look and be much more in our physical reality and cultivate a new relationship or renewed relationship with our hands and what's in front of us. And I'm just very interested in what that could look like, whether, as you said, it's giving presence to the way that I'm cooking, the way that I'm doing things, the way that I'm walking or moving outside, what is around me and what could I collect to bring in my house to create more beauty. And feeling very passionate about beauty being an absolute necessity for a human to surround ourselves with it and fill our lives with it. I guess I want to create an invitation first to myself, but to anybody that feels it too, to look today for, and maybe the rest of the week even try, for how we can actually bring our presence to a moment and see what kind of creative act we could just add to the most mundane tasks. 5 years ago, I worked for an extraordinary neuroscientist in New York called Bo Lotto. And he brought me over to New York with the mission of finding a neural signature for awe and wonder, because he hypothesized that when we experience awe and wonder, it expands the brain's capacity to tolerate risk. And our ability to tolerate risk is the way that the brain evolves. So the brain is always looking to survive, and so it's looking for patterns of safety. But the paradox of the way that the brain evolves is that it actually has to be put into risky situations or outside of a comfort zone in order to be able to expand and evolve. So we partnered with Cirque du Soleil and measured over 600 people's experiences of before seeing a circus performance show and then after seeing a circus performance show. And what happened, Bo found the neural signature for awe and wonder. And what happens in the brain at that moment when we experience an act of risk, which is an act of creativity, or we see something of beauty that puts us into a state of awe, anything that puts us into a state of awe, our brain, the part which is basically flagging fight or flight and death or life, and the risk element of our brain starts expanding and opening to be able to form more courage. And so the deepest purpose of creativity that we can have on this earth is it actually increases our courage. And it was when you were talking about tightrope walking, Chris, it just reminded me, I was like, wow, that is exactly why we need to see a tightrope walker. It's why we need to see these acts that look impossible to the human mind or body. It's why we need to see beautiful paintings or theatre that expresses the things that we can't say. Because it does that experience of awe, which that stretches our belief in what a human is capable of, does something to our brain that helps us evolve into more courage. And we know that more courage is always a good thing. So 10 years ago this year, I co-founded a band with a partner of mine, a Palestinian musician called Z the People, the Ramzi Suleiman, with 3 other Palestinian musicians. They were 4 distinct artists in their own right, rappers and incredible electronic artists. And they were all living in different countries and separated by borders. There was one in Israel, one in Jordan, 2 in Jordan rather, and 1 in America. And the act of uniting this band together for these 4 musicians to even be able to step into a rehearsal room was a great act of borderlessness. It was incredible effort and time and resilience and money that it took to even get them into a rehearsal room together. We ended up getting everyone visas to the UK, and we ended up getting residency for them in England to be able to create their music, and they formed a band called 47 Soul. And 1947 was the last free year that Palestine was free. The music was called the freedom of movement music, and it was meant to be a celebration of cultures between East and West. And they created this incredible blend of Western electronic dance music with traditional debke music, which is the music of the Levant in Palestine, Syria, and Lebanon and Jordan, with the instrument called the midwaz. And the music is both in Arabic and English. it took off like wildfire. We did their first gigs in Jordan and then toured around the Levant and also around Europe. And very, very quickly, this music of celebration and liberation and getting people to move their bodies in order to feel the liberation and the borderlessness within their own beings that we want for land, that we want for lands in conflict, that we want to be able to move and dissolve the borders that are standing as barriers between families and people and societies. Their music inspired so many people, and they became one of the most listened to bands in the Middle East and further. Their music is the most played music in Gaza and in Syria. It became the music of revolution for young people in war zones, but it also became the music of people at festivals like WOMAD and festivals across Europe and America. And I think they are one of the truest testaments that I've ever personally experienced of the power of creativity and how it can move people towards finding celebration in times of struggle.
Thank you for tuning in. If you are enjoying this episode, do join our membership. For a small contribution, you can be part of our community, where we deepen the conversation and offer spaces of learning and embodiment. As a member, you are a patron supporting the making of this show, keeping the episodes full length, free and accessible for all. And you receive a number of benefits, such as monthly soul space, going deeper sessions, access to our library of workshops, and discounts on all our online and in-person experiences. Our membership is what makes us able to make this show and stay advertising free in a world that is always trying to sell us stuff we don't need. Head to allthatweare.org/membership to find out more and join today.
I feel to share a little bit about the retreats that I run here at this place. We're here on Dartmoor at a creative residency. Yeah, this place, I've run many, many retreats here with my wonderful, wonderful co-facilitator, Alana Bloom. Part of what we are doing here is to reawaken this wildness that you were talking about. And there is something about the land here that's so rugged, and you can't see any other houses, and there's no phone reception, and there's rivers and trees and the tour, and it's helping people really to reconnect with the wildness around and to actually see how nature is can really reflect what is happening within us. I know, at least for my own creative practice, I need a lot of space actually for that inspiration to come through. And the beauty, I think, of having no phone reception here and limited Wi-Fi is that we are not distracted by all the noise and all of the demands and responsibilities of our outside world. And that space, that spaciousness is really needed to be able to feel. You know, I think we're just so used to going from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, that we often don't have time to stop and actually integrate and process the experiences that we're having. We have kind of become these like consuming machines. And as you were talking about, Amisha, it's like we identify creatively by, or we can express ourselves through what we can buy and what we have. And so part of what we do here is to create opportunities for people to slow down, tune in with nature, and then also to express themselves authentically. And what I've noticed so much is how much fear people have around expressing themselves, whether that's through their voice or through their body and movement. And there can be a fear of judgment or a sense of embarrassment and shame, and the value that creating a space free of expectation and free of judgment can be to help people to tune into what is authentic and express that without caring about how it looks and without it needing to be for anything other than that. Actually, the inspiration for this creative residency, we were meant to be running a retreat this week, and just feeling actually so full and overwhelmed and a bit burnt out from everything I've been doing over the summer. It felt like this was what I really needed to bring myself back into a state of aliveness, and noticing when my life is so full, there's like a deadness. There's like, it kind of makes me think a little bit of like Taoism and Wu Wei, and it's like, you know, you need the space, you know, it's like the space within a bowl that makes the bowl usable, or the door and the windows in the room that mean you can actually get into the house. And if there's no space, there's like this deadening that I feel in myself. And yeah, I felt so nourished by these lands and by these people, and giving myself that gift. And I think that's what I'd like to invite listeners into, is how can you carve out space in your life, even if it's just a couple of hours in the week, to move or sing or walk or write, or, you know, put some attention into how you're cooking, but that time is actually carved out and marked as sacred. And this is something that I've started bringing back into my week, is I'm fortunate enough to be freelance and can take a whole Wednesday off. And I really noticed this year, like I've been focusing so much on work that I've been working on Wednesdays, and yeah, I've been feeling a bit flat. And I've now started to take back those Wednesdays, and maybe you don't have the opportunity to have a whole day, but even just a small bit of time that you really dedicate, and you're like, this is intentional time to express what is in me.
Thank you. I resonate so deeply with what you've both shared, Dannii and Gaia. Yeah, it's my first time here in this particular place that we are in. And yeah, from being a human doer, I've dropped into being a human being again. And just to speak of how valuable it's been to bring back a practice that I know I should give myself more of, but, you know, without the phone signal, without the urgent necessity of the laptop, actually having morning practice between 8 and 9 a.m. before collective breakfast whilst we're here. And that being such a gift to start the day for myself and give to myself what I need in that moment, and to allow the kind of dream time of the night to linger a little longer, and to be on the land or go for a run, move my body, and then I eat, and then I start my day. I can personally fall into just a bad habit of I wake up and I'm straight to work when in my ordinary routine. So yeah, just really valuing the invitation that we've had here, and that Gaia's offered to everyone listening, of how can we create even just a little pockets of space for ourselves. And the morning time feels such a sacred moment that we can easily give to ourselves. Yeah, I really resonate with the shutting down of creative parts, like Dannii has shared, or the hiding. I've been reflecting on it a bit this week, because we've had evenings of cabaret nights, so where people are sharing in even really rough form something that they might be working on, or they feel to share of their creative work, be it a song or a poem or burlesque act or piece of music. I'm like, oh gosh, what am I going to share? My main thread of work is as a theatre director, and I've always loved performing. I recognise that there's a degree of hiding as a director, because I can get other people to do what I would like to do. I can facilitate them and invite them to do the crazy mad things that I don't quite have the balls for to expose myself to do. Though I always actually wanted to be a performer, but I remember, and I acted a lot when I was younger, but I remember having a really distinct moment of stage fright in the middle of performing a show at school, where I was like the lead character, and I suddenly just froze and forgot all my lines, and I just went blank. I just went totally blank. It was really hard to find the thread again, and I think that's actually been quite a key moment in my life lifetime of going, I can't put myself in that risky space again. What I've been connecting to here, and that always feels to me an access point to other realms or inspiration or a story, or just to express myself and whatever might be alive in me emotionally, is movement. I absolutely love to move and to dance. Again, just totally for myself. And it's been so like wild here, having the ability to just like find the rocks or the trees or the slopes to move with and to be with, and in like absolute freedom. And I'm like, okay, what would it be like to bring some of that into a cabaret? To be seen, for, as quotation marks, the artist, or as to be seen. The unspoken thing, as yet, it feels to me in this conversation, is the audience. There's often, I think there's always an audience to a piece of art. Yeah, I'm forever interested in that exchange and what the invitation is and what we're bearing of ourselves as makers or as artists in that moment. And it's like, it's very vulnerable. It's a very vulnerable space, and feels very tender and potent, and also can be like wild and fun and evocative and playful. Yeah, so if there's an invitation for me, it's for myself and for any listener to how can we share with others? And that might be people that we feel safe with, because that's been spoken of, like the necessity of safety in this actually is important, I think, so that we feel emotionally safe perhaps to share. But yeah, the invitation being for anyone listening and for myself to find those opportunities where something that's made or expressed could be given to another, and to really relish that exchange and to really notice and be present to that, even if there's a lot of fear, because it's really magical. Actually, it's a gift, and it might be as small as you've invited Amisha, like the crafting of something. It's a beautiful act to make a meal. That's a piece of art, to make a beautiful meal. And then what is it to gift that to someone to enjoy and relish? Or the mending of a piece of clothing is a gift for someone. So it can go from really small, like seemingly small things, to really like what feels like more epic, or that speak to realms beyond. Something that kind of came out of nowhere in my life nearly 5 years ago, which was totally unplanned and was a total co-creation, collaboration with people that I'd never met before. It was with 3 other women. We were all responding to the climate and ecological emergency at the time of the birthing of XR and of youth strikes and of councils beginning to declare emergency, and really asking the question, what does a creative response to this moment look like? And how can we facilitate a creative response for as many people as possible that we could reach or touch? Yeah, this project that was born out of that moment, Letters to the Earth, has been quite a remarkable journey since 2019, and is an example for me of something that was just through an inspired like channeling moment between 4 people. When you put us 4 women together around a table, it's like, wow, what's happening here? And it was something that really felt needed to be offered to people as an opportunity to express the grief that was really being felt at the time, the anxiety, the anger, the frustration, the fear, the sorrow around what we're losing and what might be coming, what we've done to the earth. And that process being necessary to facilitate something new to be born for society, for the world, for humanity, for our relationship with the earth, with each other and ourselves. Yeah, so something I'm working on currently is an evolution of this project, where we've had, so the invitation was for people to write and send to us letters to or from anything on earth. So it could be a letter to or from the earth herself, or another species, or another person, or another place, or moment in time. And people really giving voice to what matters to them, or giving voice to something more than human. It's been such an interesting, unexpected place to find myself as an artist, to be working with it makes me think of something that Gaia said, that I'm working with other people's creativity, other people's emotional expressions through their writing, allowing myself to be some kind of conduit or channel to then form a piece of art out of this collective body of expression into a theatrical production. It's huge. It's like been in my dreams for a few years now. Like literally having very strong images and sounds come to me. But for what's always been really important at the heart of this is the notion of participation, and how this is as inclusive and accessible for as many people that need to be expressing or need to be a part of a co-creation process that can enable us to create the better world, the future we all long for and deserve and need, and that the earth needs. So that's something that I'm trialing a little bit, or fortunate to have had the space this week to really get into. And a question I'm holding as I'm creating this piece of work is how future companies or communities or groups can really make this show their own and add their voices, add their visions, add their creativity to the artwork. So I really appreciated the distinction that Gaia made between creativity and art. That's actually quite a helpful distinction in my mind. And I can see that, how the creative process leads to an artwork, which is what I'm right in the middle of.
Wow, okay. Thank you. Gosh, I'm really touched. Like I feel really like juiced up hearing all of these things. I'm like, as I hear all of you speaking, I'm like, oh my God, I want to like speak to all of that stuff. And my mind is so full of stuff, which kind of feels like probably, well, it just is the place to start because that's my reality. Yeah, so it really starts with the breath for me. Yeah, a slowing down. And I really honor like everything that all of you have said has really resonated with me and really helped like clarify like where I am at in my own journey of what I make and what it is and what it means and how I do it and who it's for. And I recognize like something that I want to share, like I mentioned already, about like the connection for me to spirit, or whatever words we're comfortable with, goddess, God, or divine, something other than human. And like the same, and maybe going on from what Gaia said about creating space, like I really resonate with that, how much if I'm trying to come up with an idea, it's like it's totally stopping ideas from coming. So there's something about creating space. And then in my familiarly busy mind that is bubbling with thoughts like most of the time, I know that a lot of the practices that I've learned through visiting monasteries or doing like Vipassana meditation or practicing Ashtanga yoga, those practices which apparently have like a spiritual goal for my spiritual development, evolution, what they do is they slow down that busy mind and they create space. So I guess, part of my own process is looking for ways to create more space in amongst, this hecticness of living in 2023, like similarly to how we have lost, as you were saying, Amisha, and we've lost a lot of our ways of connecting with our clothing and cooking and these sort of household daily life tasks. We've also busied ourselves with a whole number of other things, like how do we keep up with our Instagram account and our 75 phone calls a week in so many different modalities and travel plans, all the things that we're capable of, because we're capable of so much more under this, and I loved the phrase you used about this sort of last stages of capitalism. As we're in that place, then how do we choose to slow down and be really grateful for these tools we have and the capacity we have as humans, but then to be really selective of like what we do with that stuff. I really want to share some of my experience as well. I was really inspired. There's like so many ideas bubbling as I heard you all talking. And I wanted to share something about the wordless, which I thought, and yeah, it might be really challenging to share with words. But I definitely know that one of the things that really satisfies me about serving work and sharing that with others, as you say, Kate, like there is something about a communication and an offering to an audience, to people who receive the work that I do. And I've been on the receiving end of, and I've heard feedback from my audiences that they have been on the receiving end of receiving some kind of transmission, like receiving something that I think it's how you put it, Dannii, of something that kind of bypasses that judgmental mind and it reaches straight to the heart or to the whole body, to the whole of us, maybe to that like interconnected body of an audience. And that's something that maybe distinguishes us from other beings, like how we all gaze upon a certain painting or hear a certain song and it inspires something in us that collectively, like we all get it, and it really brings us to another place, like as you say, Kate, another dimension. Or, you know, I've looked a little bit about the work of people like Stan Grof talking about non-ordinary states through psychedelics. And I'm aware that so many of these practices, whether it's chanting or shaking, dancing, tightrope walking for me, and focus on balance or meditation, that's what it does, is it gives me access to another part of my brain, another part of my being. And weirdly or not, that's definitely my experience of performing sometimes to really, really large crowds of people. I can only guess, but what I'm experiencing in that kind of flow state where I disappears and there's just this like fluid movement, succession of movements with music maybe, and then everybody else drops into that space as well. And we're all in that kind of space where time doesn't really exist anymore and space doesn't really exist anymore, but there's just isness happening in the presence of that one moment, which is eternity. Yeah. The only other thing I really wanted to say was about collaboration. And so it's just in my experience of my process, and there's like a really individual, really personal thing that's almost sometimes really selfish, where I just like take myself away from everyone and everything, and I just want to do things over and over and over and over and over and over again to access that spacious place and allow inspiration to flow through. And then there's another thing that's really incredible about being here for the week and in other projects where I I'm not particularly well trained in music, but I work with physical performance that uses music all the time. So when I meet musicians and I hear what they sound like, and that inspires me to move in a certain way, which potentially inspires someone else to take a photograph or video, or, you know, it's just like this whole kind of blossoming and nourishment of all of our creative drives, which brings together, this shared space where potentially without words, but with movement, sound, vision, there's so many elements that can kind of come together. And then it's finding the way that these like minds, bodies, with their different vocabularies through words, you know, it's like we all speak different languages, but we find some common shared vocabulary. And in that place, we come together and create a piece of work all together. And yeah, I mean, I don't know how much about like blowing this back into the macro, but like flipping heck, I'm like thinking about society, and I'm just thinking like, what if, you know, that's how governments ruled, you know, maybe it wasn't about ruling, but it was about collaboration. and it was about co-creativity. And it was like, okay, do you want us to cut down all the trees or not? And then people working out whether that was like a valid thing and a useful thing in society, and people really listening and being able to express their perspective, so that the piece of art that we end up with, which is our society, is something that's really genuinely co-created and really loved by all of us.
Oh, thank you, everyone. It's so gorgeous to hear you. Yeah, for me, I feel like the thing that turns me on the most in the world is when I meet someone's expression that is completely in tune with the vision of the world that they want to live in, and that speaks to the issues that we're facing in this world. And nothing for me makes me feel more alive than encountering that, whether it's songs of liberation, or it's somebody sharing a poem from their heart, or it's something that has the power to take something really complicated like climate change and make it understandable and tangible in all the complex emotions that we feel as human beings, and the way in which we step closer to that aliveness and to levels of empathy and compassion and understanding with each other. And when somebody just really cleverly manages to express the unexpressible in some way where it just seeps right into your body and you're like, wow, like there's nothing like that. And for me, that's why this place where like art and activism, where creative activism or artivism, or all these words that come through, it feels so poignant. And that can also be something that isn't necessarily seen in that way, that isn't like highly political, but watching someone walk across a tightrope high in the sky is a transformative experience where it activates something in your body that's possible. Maybe not for me in this life, but for humans. And then it brings that creativity, that aliveness back into all of our beings. And I feel like when that is alive in us, it really allows us to create something different, to relate to each other differently, and to understand why we're here in a completely different way. And I know that journey so well of the trapped creative that like feels like they're not expressing themselves. Like in my story, as a child, I was really like played all the instruments and did all the pictures and made everyone act in all my plays and all of that. And then somehow I ended up studying maths, history and economics at A-level. And pure maths 3 is still one of the most difficult experiences of my life. And I've had multiple near-death experiences, which were, pleasurable compared to pure maths 3. And I guess for me, like, I was then like studying politics and in this journey of like trying to create change in the world in that way. And I had this series of near-death experiences at 19, 21, and 24. And the one at 21 is my like creative awakening. I got hit and driven over by a 4-wheel drive pickup truck in Honduras. So, when people say like, oh, I feel like I've been run over a truck, they don't. And when they say I've been hit by a car, I've been run over, but they mean they've just been hit. It's like what happened to me was that the guy hit me, and then I fell into the road, and then he carried on to drive over me and went over my thighs and over my hair. And by some miracle, I survived. And not only survived, but here I am able to move and dance. And what really came alive for me after that accident was this sense of where I was like holding myself back and where I wasn't really being myself, and really in the realms of creativity, how I somehow got really intellectualized and serious. And so I started to paint, and I had no skill, but I did have an openness to have fun. And so I painted by just getting like the acrylics and just putting colors all over a canvas in like a really, really fun way. And then actually being like, wow, it's kind of beautiful. And I started to write poems, and I started to sing. I had singing lessons, and I just started to reclaim it all away from grade 3 and grade 4 and all of the kind of the having to do it for other people, and that re-inviting for myself. And of course I had to prove something. So I went on, made a jewelry label, and I had to get it into like Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and all that kind of stuff to like prove that I was now a creative. And it just makes me laugh, because I feel like sometimes we as humans, especially in this culture, which is the Instagram culture, we look at other people, and a lot of people don't have this thing where they want to be like them, or they want to be doing what they're doing. And I feel like that comparison thing, it only comes when that thing's not activated inside. And I feel like that's the thing. And when that thing's activated inside, then there's just no limits. One of the things that's been so gorgeous to experience here in this residency is that has shown across all the meals, and the meals have all been made with this love and this creativity, and, you know, ingredients, a certain budget, but trying to make sure that it's healthy and nutritious and that it really feeds everyone in all the ways. And experiencing people trying different things and working with different forms, from making beautiful woven tapestries out of things found in nature, to playing with lute pedals, to adding that to then poetry, to writing a play. It's just like it's all happening. And then everything becomes a tool. Everything just becomes another way of expressing ourselves. And I feel like that's the thing that we can really invite everyone to open, is that possibility to play and live in that aliveness, and then also to really feel in, like, how can that connect to a vision of the future? And then what happens when that does, when what you're creating, it says something, and then people that encounter it feel something, and it changes how they experience themselves, not in a way of like wishing that they were them, but in a way where they're like, they learn something about themselves. And that for me is what it's all about. And I feel like the more that we activate that, then the more possible it is to co-create this beautiful future, and to bring that into all areas of our lives and of our society. And all four of you are doing it in beautiful, beautiful ways. I feel like facilitators are artists. And I mean, there's just this, anyone that creates any kind of experience for anyone, which is something that we have the opportunity to do every time we walk into a room. And so just bringing that remembrance that we're all creators, that what we do matters, that how we spend our time and our energy, our money, our being, our words, that's all going into that mix of co-creation. Does anyone have a song, like one that's just like there? Yeah, Danny's got one.
This is a song by The Work. It's part of a process called The Work That Reconnects by Joanna Macy. And it was the one that came through when you asked for a song. We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones that circle round to tend this fire. We shall be known by the ones that sow and weep the seeds of change, the life from deep within the earth. And it is time now that we thrive. It is time to weave ourselves into the web. And it is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
Thank you to all of you, beautiful, beautiful ones, for sharing and being part of this co-created experience.
So I'm findable all over the internet with my surname Bullzini. So you can search that up online and you'll find more about me.
I'm building the courage to make my own actual website for me, Kay Michael, as an artist. However, you will find the project of Letters to the Earth at letterstotheearth.com.
You can find out more about me and my work at GaiaHarveyJackson.com. And if you're interested to come on a retreat, then check out truenature.org.uk.
My website is DanniiEvans.com. That's Dannii, Evans.com. And if you want to know about the music of 47 Soul from Palestine, it is 47, the number, soul.com.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it has sparked some inspiration and creativity in you. As always, you can find links to everything we mention in this episode, download our book, and discover so much more over on allthatweare.org. We give space to our guests to share their perspective without debating it or fact-checking, as this approach allows for deep, unedited conversations from the heart. We trust your discernment and wisdom to take what is useful and challenge what isn't in your own understanding. We offer spaces for discussion and integration in our membership community, which we would love for you to join. We don't believe in selling you things you don't need through this podcast, and so it's made possible by you, our beautiful community. If you loved this and would like to connect more deeply with us, please join our membership. You choose what you contribute based on our sliding scale, and you become a patron whose support makes this podcast happen, as well as receiving access to a library of many resources and invitations to nourishing events. Please also hit subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen so others can find us. This podcast is made by an all-female global team. Me, Amisha Gadiali, producer and host, Anna Greta Folderbach, who crafts the words that accompany each episode, and Mary Chan, who edits the sound so skillfully. All That We Are celebrates all that we are already and the untapped potential that lives inside us. It invites the full power of the more than human world, nature, the unseen, our ancestors, and our future generations. It reminds us that we never exist in silo, through borders, timelines, or polarity, that in each and every moment, all that we are is here.